Hey guys, welcome back to Photography for the Rest of Us. I am Carrie, and today we are going to edit an axe murderer. Alright guys, so we are going to edit those images that we took in our spooky axe murderer photo shoot. If you didn't see that video, go ahead and look in the link below and watch that one and then come back and join us. So I'm going to go through and use Lightroom today, and I'm just going to use my laptop because this is a pretty basic edit and I don't need to get too in-depth with anything, but I'm going to talk you through it. So if you don't edit in Lightroom, that's fine, because most other programs, even the free programs and that, have similar sliders, and a lot of them are named the same thing. So you can kind of, they might not be in the same place, but you can kind of get the same effects, okay? So today I'm actually using Lightroom Classic because I like the desktop version. It has more options for me and I can use it offline. And as a lot of you guys know, I'm a travel photographer when COVID doesn't have me grounded, which means I'm not always in areas where I can use internet actively. So the desktop version is the best version for me at this point in time. All right, so let's get to it, guys. Okay, so we are going to get started. We have all of our images from the other night. I went through and picked out a couple that I really liked and kind of played with them a little bit just so that I had some idea what I was going to talk to you guys about, because I feel like that's only fair. But I haven't done a whole lot with them. This is actually the first image that I took on the recording with you guys. I did try it a couple of times beforehand because I didn't want to give you guys some sort of information that wasn't going to be accurate. So I do try these out a lot of times beforehand. I'm sure that at some point I will post live active videos of me working it out and you can see all of the crazy that goes behind it. But I want to give you guys the easiest way to do whatever shoot that we're doing, which means I try and work some of the kinks out for you ahead of time. This one was pretty simple. I like the rim lighting that you can see around the figure here, but obviously it doesn't have the smoke and it doesn't quite have that eerie effect that we're going for. So going through some of these, I like this image a lot. I like that the placement of the light is very much with his axe handle. I don't like that the axe is actually touching his leg. It kind of destroys the illusion a little bit for me. And again, I like being able to see the silhouette of his head. So I'm not as happy with that one. We'll just kind of move on. I am pretty sure over here towards the end, we were really starting to nail it. There's a little less rim light, but there's a lot more overall. So this was one of the ones that I edited, and I'm actually going to create a virtual copy of that and reset it so you can see it raw. So this is completely unedited version of this image. I really like that the light is right on the axe handle, and I like how much fog is on there. So we can go through and edit this one. That one would be good. And then how about, I think this one was my favorite one from the shoot. Oh no, this one down here. This one was my favorite one from the shoot. This is the edit that I liked. And I did play with this one quite a bit. It wasn't, so let me give you, let's see, virtual copy. See, I could have this all totally set so that it looks like everything's ready all the time, but that's just not the reality of this, right? So this is the raw, straight out of camera one that I picked. I really like this image, okay? And then I'm gonna show you a couple of edits that I did, and then we're gonna talk through it and we'll edit it together, okay? So first off, when we look at this, we see that the image is kind of yellow toned. Now, that's two reasons. One, headlights are pretty yellow, especially in older vehicles, which I'm gonna admit mine totally is. And two, I think I had my camera actually set to daylight balanced at this point in time, which was not intentional, but looking back at it, I think that's where I was. So so the first thing that I did was bring it back to auto, right? So, or bring it back to auto, what am I saying? What I did was correct the white balance. So the first thing that I did was correct the white balance. Right here we can see that there's no more yellow And I kind of like this. I have to admit, the white, smoggy, smoky look is pretty interesting. And so if you want to see, again, straight out of camera, all I do to correct the white balance is I come up here to the top where it says white balance, which is WB on Lightroom. And I'm going to, instead of as shot, I'm just gonna hit auto to start with, because a lot of times auto does a pretty good job of getting me close, and then I can edit from there. Don't be afraid of some of these edits or some of these autos. So it's a little blue, but I like the white balance there. I think that's good. We're actually gonna go through here before I even start messing with it, and we're gonna crop this a little bit. So I wanna bring it in, I want it nice and dead center, and I want to make him look bigger and a little more ominous in the picture. So we're going to crop it all the way in, something like that. There we go. And it's a little crooked. So what I'm going to do is, this is the crop button right here, the little square tool. And I'm going to go up and I'm going to hit auto to align and see if it straightens it up a little bit. And it did, I think. Reset. Auto. Oh, yep, see. So we can see the fact that it was just a little bit crooked here with the bottom of the garage door, or floor, I guess. So we're gonna come up and crop it in. I like it kind of tight, but I want it too tight, you know. And I like this shadow that's forming. I think it makes him look taller. So, well, maybe it's a little too much. How about like there? Yeah, I like that. Okay. So this was with our corrected white balance, right? So we've got nice white smoke because it corrected that yellow, and you can still see that it's a little bit yellow and hazy in some of these areas because it's just the color that the light was, but it's corrected it quite a bit. And I like that. I think that that looks nice. I think another version that some people could go with, or some people might like, would be kind of to warm it up a little bit and go into that yellow kind of hazy smoky look. This looks more like what it looked like straight out of camera, right? Like this is kind of where it was. I want something with a little bit more depth though. So I think that maybe rather than like totally yellow, I'm gonna play with some split toning, which we'll talk about in a minute, but I'll warm the image up just a little bit now. It's very possible that I'll change that as we go through and edit. So, okay, going through our little sliders. Honestly, one of the things that I really love about this shoot and these images is that they look good straight out of camera. Honestly, I have cell phone pictures that look good of this in this shoot, right? Like, they don't look great. They don't look as great as when the final edited photo does. But this is an easy shoot that just looks really striking no matter what. And it's funny because while we were shooting this, right, after the camera rolled, our neighbor came over and was like, oh my gosh, what are you guys doing? Why does he have such a big axe? And we showed him it was cardboard, and they were very surprised. So our neighbors all think we're crazy, but it's all for you guys so that you can get some fun photo shoot ideas. All right, so the first thing that I am going to deal with on this one is, I think I'm going to bring up or bring down our blacks just a little bit to make it a little bit bolder, and I'm gonna bring up the highlights just a little bit to get a little more of a glow from those headlights. And again, I might adjust this a little bit as I tweak other things, but that's kind of where I want to start. And then I'm gonna come down here to the dehaze button. I'm actually gonna make it a little hazier. Ooh, there we go. Most of the time people go a little crazy with the dehaze slider and they go up, right? And if you go up, it makes it really harsh, and that's not attractive. But I'm gonna go down a little bit on this one because I want that haze. I want it to look like he's stepping out of the fog to come and murder me. It's very funny for me to talk like that about my husband. So I'm gonna slide the dehaze down, and now I think my highlights are a little high, so we'll bring them down just a hair. Maybe the white's up a little bit. And the black's down. Wherever we want to play with our shadows. Maybe shadows up just a tiny bit. I like that we can see the top of his head there. All right, and then as far as a tonal curve and stuff, I don't really think we need to mess with the curve a whole lot. For this image, I think that just the contrast looks really good. We could bring it up and make it a little more matte if we wanted, maybe. Let's see. Honestly, I am fine with it being just a linear tonal curve on this one. I think that we could play with contrast a little bit. maybe up the contrast just a tiny bit, but that's really, I think, all we need to do with this one. Not all images you need to touch all the sliders, right? Like, it's a matter of just making something look good the way you think it looks good, because you are the artist in this situation. All right, but the big thing that I want to change with this image, and it's kind of an advanced thing, people don't play with the sliders very much, but I really like playing with them, especially in these kind of a situation, these kind of shoots, is the split toning. Now, I heard rumor that this is going to change in Lightroom soon, and they're going to have really good color grading tools, and I am so flippin' excited about that. But until that happens, let's deal with split toning. So split toning means that I'm gonna color the highlights and the shadows separately and differently, okay? So let's start with the highlights. And I'm just going to pick, let's do kind of a yellow, right? We like kind of the yellow. And we're gonna up the saturation until you start to see, I'm gonna go crazy, but you see how that yellow only affects the highlighted section of the image? All right, so we'll go kind of saturated there. Maybe a little more orange to the yellow. Yeah, it looks okay. Again, I will probably change it while we're editing. And then I'm gonna come down to the shadows, and I want to add an eerie feel. So I'm thinking green. So let's put some green in the shadows. Oh yeah, I like that. So maybe, yeah, less blue. Let's bring the balance over. So the balance changes it whether the highlights are more predominant or the shadows are more predominant as far as where the color toning is. And I'm gonna bring it down so the shadows are a little bit more. Yeah, I like that, okay. Maybe warm up the whole image just a little bit. Ah. I love it when it delays and then all of a sudden you're like, what am I doing? Yeah, and I'm gonna bring those highlights back down just a hair. I'm not hating this. I think this looks pretty cool. All right, so my ISO was a little higher because I really wanted that glow. I just wanted those headlights to just be hot, right? I just wanted them to be light. A lot of times, right, when we're exposing for landscapes or portraits and that, you don't want to blow out your highlights. When you're doing something like this where it's like it's supposed to be fantasy and it's supposed to be fake, blowing out your highlights, like, who cares? It looks fine. But I am going to noise reduce a little bit. That's a personal preference. Honestly, I think these images would look really cool grainy as well. So you could totally, let's see, let's play with the grain. You could totally, yeah, bring it up and it just looks a little bit more like antiqued. But I'm gonna go with no grain for me. Okay, so editing wise, I don't think that looks terrible. I'm pretty happy with that. Let's see this one, and then I think this one was the one that I thought was my final edit before. They never look the same. All right, so this one, hello. I love technology. All right. Yeah, I think I like the one, so the reference one is the one that we just did, and the other one is the one that I did before. I think I actually like the one we just did better. Have it a little bit warmer, a little bit more red. All right. Oh, maybe not. Yeah, okay. So, yeah, so I like the little bit more warmer, a little bit more red. Now, the big elephant in the room on this image is the cable going across the back of his legs. Now, a lot of photographers are going to tell you, go into Photoshop and fix that. And Photoshop will fix that very quickly and very easily. And I'm not saying don't do that. If you are comfortable in Photoshop, have at it. I am going to stay in Lightroom today for two reasons. One, I want to keep this whole shoot, both the photographing part and the editing part, very accessible to any level of photographer. And B, I think it does just a fine job in Lightroom for this image. There are some images where you want those finer details, and so you really want to get in there with Photoshop, but I think for this one, it looks fine. So I'm going to zoom in, okay? Zoom in on my image, and you can, I have a max, so it's just 2 fingers. You can squeeze in and out. And right here, I think you can see Sage's elbow, right? And then we see like a little dot. That's a street lamp from behind us and that. What we're gonna do is come over here to the clone and heal tool. And I'm going to have a little more size to my brush. And all you're gonna do is click on the spot that you don't like, and poof, it goes away. All right. And then these bigger spots, normally I would say kind of color them in, but I think that because it's haze, we can really cover them okay. Yeah, that looks okay. I'm going to move it up to there. So when both of the little dots are highlighted, you can totally pick where you want your fog or your replacement to come from. Yeah, I like it like there. Poof, gone. Maybe even kind of color that in just a, ooh, that was really big. All right, so let's work on this extension cord because I think that is the elephant in the room right now. Ah. My screen's going all over the place. It looks like I have no idea what's happening. Okay, here we go. So take out this little edge. All right, now the trick with this is that we're going to use the heel brush and we're not going to do big sections. So you don't want to like color the whole thing at once. We're going to just do little strips and make sure that it kind of blends in with what you're looking at. Even do a little smaller. There, see, it's like it magically never was there. All right, and then I want you to actually notice something right now. What in this section, right, do you see that maybe I'm forgetting or not dealing with? Okay, if you said the shadow on the ground, you are right. So that is one of those things that like helps the believability of all of it, right? When you take something out, don't forget to take the shadow out as well. And I'm gonna actually drag this one down here because it's a little in focus, so I wanna continue that illusion. Yeah, that looks pretty good. All right, and maybe a little bit. Some of these are just blemishes in the concrete, and I'm fine with that. All right, so just looking at that side, you see, you would have never known that we had paraphernalia in the back there. All right, so when we get in nice and close, and I want you to zoom in, when you get in nice and close here, a lot of times with the healing brush, the challenge is if you get too close to an object, you get like this bleed, right? You see how it's like blurring from his boot? So the easiest way in Lightroom, and again, we're doing a Lightroom hack here. You absolutely could do 2 seconds in Photoshop, but if you don't know how to use Photoshop, it does not take 2 seconds. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to make the feather on my brush smaller, okay? I want a tiny bit of feather still so that it blends better, but I wanna make the feather smaller and I get as close as I can to that boot. And you can see now that we don't get that extra like blur. Color it in. Easy enough. So let's go through real quick and we'll just do the rest of this extension cord. So funny, it's totally the way it always works for me that like I'll have 15 images where there's nothing in the way of any of it and it looks great, and then I'll have like 3 that have like an extension cord through them, or I can see my assistant's hand or something, and somehow those are always the ones that like I like the best. And I'm like, ah, now I have to do all this editing. But if you can keep the editing in Lightroom, as far as I'm concerned, that's easy editing. It's when we have to like drag it into Photoshop and then drag it back. And I'm not saying Photoshop is bad by any means. I use Photoshop. I don't use it a ton. I try really hard to get most of my effects in camera, but I do use it, and I do really enjoy using it for more artistic stuff. So here's another one where we're having that struggle around that boot. We can make it a little smaller. We're just gonna go right on the edge. It doesn't have to be perfect because this is a very hazy image. So the haze is actually helping us with these edits right now. That is not good. Sometimes the algorithm does not know what's happening. Maybe up here. Let's try it up there. Ooh, wait, yeah, that looks pretty good. Maybe, okay. Let's see. It's not perfect, but I think it's good for our purposes because we're gonna end up zooming all the way out. Okay, well maybe not like that far out, but we're gonna zoom all the way out and I don't think it'll be particularly noticeable. We'll go back in there and see. All right, yeah, we got a little bit of bleed happening there. Maybe just scooch it over just a little bit. Oh, it's hard because the highlight hit that extension cord right there. There we go, that's pretty good. All right, and then we'll just finish out coloring in this extension cord. Sometimes you have to drag the dropper down to the covering area, the what is that called? The area that they're drawing the pixels from and the inspiration from, I guess. There is a term, I'll think of it by the end of the video. Isn't right? If they have it way up here in the haze, it's just not going to cover things the same way. So you just have to grab that and drag it down. Easy peasy. It does a really good job most of the time, and then every once in a while it's like totally out there. This is like a weird highlight spot too. Alright, so moral of the story on editing is it does not have to be absolutely, utterly perfect as long as it looks good. Because while you might be able to see, I'm going to take these spots out. While you might be able to see the whatever because you knew it was there, nobody else knows it was there. And you guys didn't know it was there in my image before I pointed it out either, right? Like on the click button, the YouTube thumbnail. All right, so I am honestly pretty happy with this just the way it is. This took like, what, 2 minutes? It was pretty easy. Maybe a vignette, what do you think? Maybe a little bit, like a super feathered vignette. It's already kind of naturally vignetting with the smoke, but yeah, sure. Only because it's creepy. I wouldn't normally put a vignette or very much of a vignette on anything, but I think it adds to the whole effect. But yeah, I am pretty happy with that, so we will... I totally didn't make another virtual copy. So we will, let's see a before and after real quick on this. This is before. This is after. This is before. All right, so before and after on our image, we gave it a little bit of depth with some split toning. We played with the highlights and the shadows just a little bit. And then we removed that extension cord. In the original one, you can even see Sage's knee on it and that. But super easy edit that didn't take that long because it was great in camera. And I think that if there's any moral to this story here, you guys, is that if your images are really good in camera, if you really work on your composition and your lighting in the camera, then editing goes really fast and easy because there's not much you need to do to it. So many people spend so much time editing their photos and they're really over editing. If you work harder in the actual photographing portion of everything, then you don't have to, if you work harder in the actual photographing, photo shoot section of everything, you don't have to work as hard in editing and Photoshop. And now, if this is the part that you really love, there are lots of genres you can get into where you really manipulate those images. But for me, my favorite part is capturing the images and using the light and trying to manipulate that light to paint some sort of beautiful image that looks beautiful on the back of my camera. And then I just kind of like zhuzh it up a little bit in post. I don't want to spend hours and hours on my computer. I want to spend hours and hours out and about and shooting. And so I try and keep things super simple and clean and easy. And I hope that that's what you got from this video and this shoot. So remember, we have 4 more Fridays, I think. 4 more Fridays in October. And we've got more creepy, haunted photo shoots every single Friday. Next week, we're doing a spooky ghost with some really advanced lighting techniques, but I'm gonna break them down so that they'll be pretty easy for you, and I think you'll totally be able to manage. The theme with this is going to be how to photograph with our costumes, right? So we've got princesses and witches and ghosts and axe murderers, and I'm going to go the full gauntlet from beautiful fantasy to creepy crawlies, and I think it'll be a really good time. So comment below if you got some images that you really love and this editing helped you. Please let me know if there's anything else that I can include in the editing that would help you more explanation, or if I need to go into more detail. I know that I watch tutorials all the time, and sometimes at the end I'm like, well, but wait, you didn't answer my question. So if I didn't answer your question, please leave the comment below, and I'd be happy to help you out with that, or do an additional video to help you out with that. And if you liked this video and this whole theme of our spooky shoots on Fridays for October, go ahead and hit the like button. Make sure that you've subscribed to my channel and notification bell for videos on Tuesdays and Fridays in October. Just Tuesdays the rest of the year because I like seeing my family sometimes. All right, you guys, I hope you had a great time. Spooky, happy, haunted season to you, and happy shooting.